firms in Turkey. It is the only position in my entire life where I sit on the other side of the table, as always said. It was the first time I was an auditee, not an auditor. Finally, I work for the audit department of a large French retail group operating all over the world in a global sense, literally, which is Groupe Rocher. I have gained experience in many sectors, different locations in different locations and all around the world in my working life. Learning never stops. If I start learning 25 years ago, this profession, I'm still learning. So I always tell to my colleagues, compared to 25 years ago, things and the profession is very different now. So we are going to talk about data analytics, technology, machine learning, artificial intelligence. Wow, yani these are the, it's funny thing that when I started the profession, there was no internet. I mean, look where we are now, you know. So lastly, I want to say a few words about the followers at LinkedIn. Thank you all in this short period of 2 years, almost 2 years of period. You have valued my writings, my sharings, my opinions, and you have found me worth following. Thank you for that. I know that information is valuable when we share. I personally believe that it's a duty to share what I know with others, because after all, we are not going to live forever in this world, so we have to pass it through. This is my philosophy, actually. So this is basically it is, you know.
Okay.
Now, Claire.
Yeah, we don't. We get to the midlife crisis. It's like I'm the same. I'm 46, and I'm thinking, okay, it's going over the middle. Now we have to think about sharing things with others for sure. Okay.
Exactly.
So I'm going to launch this little poll here just to let everybody on the call participate as well, because we want to make this webcast interactive and fun for everybody. So just let us know, like, how does your internal audit department use data analytics today? Maybe you are not yet using it, or maybe you're using data analytics sometimes, but only manually in Excel. Maybe you are using data analytics on all audits and with a dedicated tool. So it might be that you have a process set up and you get the data, you put it in the tool, you run some tests, and then you use it for the audit. It may be that you're even doing continuous auditing. So you might be doing auditing of all of your entities around the world and finding out, you know, where the risk areas are, and that's helping you to do your audit planning. Or it might be that you've kind of gone even beyond that, and now you are actively helping the business, maybe handing over some of those things that you're doing continuous auditing and helping the business to use maybe some of those in internal control. So let us know what you think, where you think you are on that in the poll question. And let's let some people answer the poll for a little bit. Sally, what do you think? From your experience in the past, where would you say, you know, I don't say like, where would you say you are now, because this may be a confidential question, but where would you say is the best place to be, or the interesting place to be?
I mean, for the last, I mean, the profession has changed for the last 25 years. I can all say that all the internal audit departments have evolving day by day. So using data analytics, we used to do it with Excel, of course, in my early stages of my profession. But now it's Excel is not enough, and there are many tools around it, in the market, how I say. So we have to give something to the companies that we work for as internal auditors, because we are claiming that we are we are trying to give value to the departments, to the companies that we work for, but I don't know. The times are changed. I mean, the technology is everywhere, not only internal audit. I mean, if you check out the sales departments, the marketing departments, they are all doing those type of analytic jobs to better understand their customers, their products, how they move around the market, especially also the logistics department. They ship, yeah, we don't used to do international shipments very often or very easily as before, but now it's easy to do that. If you want to sell something, you can put it on the market on your computer, and you can sell it to far away to the corner of the world, and it's very easy. There are hubs, there are networks to take it and deliver it and those type of things. So it has changed. The times are changing, and maybe in the future, I mean, maybe 10 years later, it will be much more, how do you say, much more, everybody will be eligible to do all those type of things.
Yeah, it keeps going. It's like, it reminds me of one of our clients said to me one day, if I don't know how to use data analytics in 10 years time, I'm out of a job. That's what he was stressed about. So we were doing a training,
Yeah,
so it's like, I need to learn. Okay, so I'm going to share the results of this poll now. So I'm going to end it now, and let's have a look at what people are saying. So, all right, so if you can see that there, so 20% of you are not using it yet. 66 are using data analytics sometimes, but only manually in Excel. So getting started, right? Getting into it. 29 of you, 20% are saying using data analytics on all audits and with a dedicated tool. 10% using continuous auditing to detect areas of risk, and 5% already in the process of handing over some data analytics. So I feel like it's a way, if people getting into it through Excel, maybe hopefully moving, well, hopefully, if they feel the need, moving on
Claire,
to it. Yeah.
actually, it is related to the size of the company, actually.
Okay.
I mean, if it's a big company with a lot of budget, with a lot of resources, and understandable upper management, that you can convince them easily for to make an investment in such a tool, it's easier, of course, but not everybody is doing that. Not everybody is in a situation like this. Many small companies are internal auditors. In many small companies, they are still struggling or finding their way to do all the data analysis or data analytics jobs with Excel or any similar tools. But I hope in the future the softwares on the market will be lower price and cheaper, so that everybody can buy them and use them, you know.
Yeah. And they're getting easier every day also, right? They're getting more.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Also, there are competition there also.
Yes, lots of competition. Okay. All right. So now, Talia, I'll hand over to you to talk about your data analytics and the effects of internal audit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, let's see. If you go to the second, yes. What is data analytics? What is continuous auditing, monitoring? These are the phrases that we face for the last decade. Honestly, I don't know how long data analytics has been used by my colleagues or by internal audit departments. However, I personally have been using data analytics in my audits for the last 10 years, for a decade, alongside with the traditional auditing approaches. We don't lose the traditional auditing methods or techniques, but data analytics is helping us in our job for the last 10 years. The use is sometimes in the form of simple classification of the data, and sometimes it's more complex, the interpretation of complex operations. We are using it for that. If you think about what is data analytics in general, I think it is making large amounts of data, because we are dealing as companies with the large amounts of data. It's making large amounts of data that we can understand and or to transfer it to serve our purpose. That's what I understand. There's a big chunk of data, and we have to get a meaning out of it. So we are using that data with the tools, so we can understand, we can act accordingly. You know, this is what I understand, at least. We have done this here for many years using Excel, as I said, in the early stages of my career, our career maybe. There are still areas where we benefit from Excel also. In a daily basis, we are using Excel, of course. But frankly, technology has advanced a lot in this regard. There are very good softwares, good programs that will process big data and give the results the auditors want. These softwares make our work very much easier and shed light on the points that we focus on. In this way, we can both do continuous audits and a chance to constantly monitor the systems that we are working with. Frankly, I don't know how the technical, I don't know I don't know much about the technical side of the job. I have some idea about how the data analytics software is working, but I think it's which algorithms they are supposed to work. But since I'm not a software engineer or software developer, or so I don't actually understand the technical part of it. I'm not familiar with it. But actually, there is no need for me. There is no need to understand that part. The technical side of the job should be left to those who specialize in that business. What I will talk about today in this webinar is to how it contributes to us, to internal audit professionals. Does it make our job easier? How do we sense of the data at hand? How do we come to a conclusions from those softwares, the data that we gain? How do we connect what we have? How does it contribute to my work? That's the most important part. These are the important questions as internal auditor, because after all, there are many tools which help us to contribute more to our organizations. We want to add value, as I said. That's the most important thing of internal audit departments. So these tools can help us add more value to the companies that we work for. So this is the important thing, because as internal auditors, we always say we give reasonable assurance to the company we work. So I think these tools help us to do that, more reasonable assurance. That is the main point of using data analytic tools.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's super interesting to kind of understand that, like, from your point of view, how it actually, you know, contributes to audit and benefits the audit, because people like myself, we like geeks, you know, in the room, technical people, and we maybe have a hard time trying to convince the head of internal audit or others. Yeah, exactly. What's the point? Okay, you want me to move on? So why data analytics?
Why data analytics? Yeah, there are many benefits I can talk about, but there are some points that we should address. We should state the benefits, some of the important benefits. One of it is it provides, as the slide says, provides insights to improve operational efficiency and the visibility across the company. Before the rise of data analytics, internal auditors, we all relied on the information gained from the meetings and the limited set of financial data to conduct our internal audits. Over the last decade, for the last 10 years, data analytics have become more advanced. As a result of that, it's now possible for internal auditors to gain more insight. Because of this, they increase their predictive capabilities. That's the important part of it. The simplest way of telling you how operational efficiency can be increased with data analytics is easy. We used to spend a lot of time gathering data from different departments, comparing them, sorting them, and try to get a meaning from them. This used to take a lot of time and effort. And also we used to confirm a lot of data obtained from those different departments, which of them are correct or accurate. With data analytics, it's now easier. That's why our operational efficiency is now higher. And we can see the whole picture throughout the company. That's one of the reasons stated, one of the benefits of the data analytics. Why? The answer to why. The other one is it enables us faster problem solving, and decision-making process is much more faster on the operational level. Not only for internal audit departments, other departments which are using data analytics, such as purchasing, such as sales, such as marketing, they also use data analytics to make decision-making faster. So the data analytics allows internal audit departments to streamline the internal audit process so that it can be completed with a shorter time frame and a lower cost, of course. Internal auditors can quickly make connections between different data sets and databases. We used to make these connections manually before with long meetings with the related department heads. But now, because we have a faster tool, we can focus on more profitable areas like strategic risks of the company. As a result, we can solve the problems faster and make accurate decisions. The other stated reason for using data analytics to find the hidden meaning and patterns and trends and the relationships between the data gathered. That's also important thing for us, for internal auditors. As internal auditors, we often collect data so that we can find patterns in the data, like numbers trending upwards or correlations between two sets of numbers. One of the reasons we analyze data is to come up with predictions, to get a meaning from them and to think the future, what we are going to do. I can tell you about the sector I'm writing here in right now, because I work currently for a retail company, and the company that I work for owns huge number of retail shops in all around the world. I mean, the number is huge, like 3,000 shops all around the world. As you can imagine how big the number is. For a retail company, as everybody can tell, the data you get in the shops is important. When you think of a particular retail store, for example, how much we sold is a good question. In what time the sales are high is a good question. In what time period that the sales are low is also a good question. What is the connection between the customer entering to the shop and the sale? We call this in retail jargon is turnover rate. So these are important data. So this data is important also for sales departments, as well as for internal auditors like us. If something different and unusual from the general trends on this matter, one of our jobs is to investigate this situation and find the reasons for the abnormality. Here we may encounter some system errors from the data which we gain, or we may encounter fraud. So in both cases, we have to make a lot of use of data analytics in order to find this out. So yes, data analytics, we can easily say, find the hidden meaning in our data. The other part, the other reason that we use data analytics, it delivers intelligence to the field in real time. If we talk about this 15 years ago, as everybody can imagine, it was a dream to have a real-time data from the field, especially from the field. Now it's not a dream, it's expectation from the upper management. They expect to have those kind of data in real time. So real-time analytics refers to the process of measuring data as soon as it enters to our database, enters to our system. In other words, we can get insights or can make conclusions immediately after the data enters to the system. So real-time analytics allows the businesses to react without delay. That's the good part of it. For example, if I give you some example, not from the retail, from the bank sector, the banks, they use real-time data to keep their customers safe. So they analyze their transactions in real time and use patterns matching to these if a purchase, for example, is fraudulent or not. For example, if a customer spends big amount of money than usual or makes a purchase other than their usual location in a remote location or a foreign location, the bank can flag the transaction and reach out to the customer for authorization before the purchase. This is also happening in real time. You know, banks are using it. Maybe some of you is witness for it. For example, companies now using the remote monitors and real-time data analytics to monitor their manufacturing, for example, their manufacturing equipment, other machines, so they can spot maintenance issues prior to breakdowns. So this is one of the usage of data analytics in real time, so from the field. So this is important for business continuity, of course. Also, it is very important. Predicting issues with real-time data analytics not only saves time or money, it also prevents accidents such as in the production line. So one of the other reasons is to confirm existing controls are working properly, which is for both management and internal auditors. Internal control testing can be incredibly tedious sometimes. Automating some of these processes can prove very valuable for everyone. So data analytics are great for increasing the quality, efficiency, and capabilities of testing, internal control testing. This is especially true when, with the internal control. If I give you an example on this, for example, journal entry and payments are testing two important subjects of internal control. Some specific examples, if I can give you, entries posted on a weekdays or holidays, these are actually, we are controlling in our company too. Entries posted outside of our normal business hours, missing journal entry numbers in a normal order, entries posted and approved by the same employee. These are all the things that we are analyzing on real time, continuously. We are doing this. So these all can be done by using data analytics. The last part, which I love to talk about, mitigate the risk of fraud, because I am so interested in the subject. We had many webinars before. The amount of data we produce is growing, and there is no sign of slowing it down. So this makes it really hard to uncover fraud indicators. Only internal controls are not enough, sorry, but it's not enough. And the employees, they are clever, so they are finding it. Be sure about it. So there are a lot of benefits when we talk about using data analytics to mitigate the risk of fraud. I won't say it can prevent it to zero, because it's impossible, but it really mitigates the fraud. So when we implement the data analytics for fraud, we automatically search 100% of our transactions for fraud. So we can easily merge and compare data from different systems. It's easy. So For example, we can quickly identify fraud before it comes to front page news, let's say. In addition, we reduce sampling errors and improve internal controls. And of course, we have saved a lot of time by automating these tests. It saves us a lot of time. So one of the other reasons that we use data analytics is that. And although, for example, we talked about sampling or testing, we use sampling a lot in internal audit. I personally still using it without analytics. Sampling method is, I believe, it will be part of our job for and in the future too. So, but there are shortcomings and serious shortcomings with many control testings like sampling. You can't fully measure the impact of control failures when you sample, randomly sample from the transactions, or you can miss many smaller abnormalities, which can result in very large fraud in the time being. And sample testing doesn't find warning patterns and fulfill regularity needs. So although testing sample data is valid audit approach, and I'm also using it, it's not as effective for fraud detection purposes. So this is because fraudulent transactions don't generally occur randomly. You have to test all the population. So to effectively test and monitor internal controls, your organizations need to analyze all relevant transactions. Sometimes something that's almost impossible to do without data analytics and automation. That's all I can say. The 6 reasons that's why you should use data analytics.
Okay, we have a question here from George. George is saying, due to COVID, many employees work from home. So a company system of internal controls that designed within an office may not be working with people working remotely. As an example, internal controls to prevent duplicate invoice payments with people working remotely may not be working. And so the question is, should audit develop data analytics to test these internal controls that prevent duplicate payments, or test if duplicate payments are prevented? I think that's quite an interesting question, because sometimes we just test the control, and if the control is there, but we don't test if the result of what the control is trying to prevent is still happening, right? So we might go in.
Exactly, it's a good question, but what I mean to say, if you have internal control department and risk department or whatever departments who controls and try to mitigate the risk of fraud or any kind of risk, internal audit's job is easier. But if you put everything to internal audit department, which designing internal controls, designing the risk management, risk assessment, and internal audit, that time it will be difficult to implement those type of things. There should be, how do you say, job classification among those type of controls.
Yeah. And I definitely say, like, because we can test the controls, but like you say, patterns are really important as well, right? Because sometimes you might test the controls, but you still see that there is some patterns that indicate the control might not be covering everything, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, if you apply the data analytic tool correctly, if it's correctly working, if it's working correctly, that time all the compliant parts of the analysis will not come onto use. It will come all the in non-compliant parts, all the how do you say, deficient parts, all the anomalies, all the abnormalities will come to you. So if you put the rules of the algorithm correctly, that data analytics can help you. Otherwise, you cannot depend on it, you know?
Yeah, you can, yeah. And George is saying many employees now working remotely. Should data analytic tests be developed to test internal controls for business areas that were developed based on employees working in one office? Some critical controls as a result of working remotely may no longer exist. I wonder what kind of controls he's thinking of exactly. I don't know, like physical inventory or something. Maybe it's difficult to do if you're not in the office. So I'm not sure if Sally, if you have any thoughts about that one. Appear to have frozen a little bit. Oh no, there you
go. I can see you, but I can't hear you.
Okay, can't hear me too well. Okay.
Now I can hear you. Yeah.
Now you can hear me.
I'm going to put on my earphones so that I can hear more properly.
Okay. All right. So yeah. So George is talking there about, like, you know, remote. Maybe the internal control environment changed a little bit due to home working. So yeah, I guess we definitely need to consider that, right? If that happens. Okay. So a little interlude then. I just wanted to give us some examples of some controls that we might do, or some data analytics tests that we might do, and then pass back to Sally after that. So for example, this one, this is, and just made a little video of this. This is an example data analytics about accounts receivable compared to the general ledger. And the idea is to have a look at the trends. Like Sally was saying, we need to have a look at the trends and get an idea of the documents over time and the values over time, where we might have peaks, like especially for sales. Maybe we have big peaks, and it might indicate that there's a problem, right? It might indicate that there is something, some unusual invoices, or like high volume of invoices might, just before the end of the year, might indicate that they may be fictitious. And then other things that we can do here with filtering on separation of duties issues, to see, for example, if you want to see if somebody's entering the sales order and the goods receipt and the invoice and everything for one same document flow, then that would be more of like an exception report that you might want to do. So this is an example of type of dashboard that, again, that we could do to get a sort of overview of the total values of the whole process, the trends of the process over time, to see if we're having something strange occurring. Like if we see there's a big peak, we can have a look and see why. Why do we have a big peak there, maybe in payments or sales orders? And then
exactly.
After that, having a look at, here we've got a process running graph just to see if everything is flowing in the right direction. If you're not always having a sales order and it's going to invoice payment, things like that. And then having a look at specific exceptions, such as separation of duties. So like you say, Sally, this kind of dashboard absolutely takes forever to do. If you have to group together the data from your sales department and then your billing department and the payments and everything, putting it all together takes a really long time. But if you create the data analytics, should be automatically reproducing that. Yeah.
And Claire, also the visualization is also important, because I can see that there are many figures over there. Many of the upper management, when you report to them those figures, it is different when you report visual tables or visual charts to them. It will be more understandable. So as I can see from your presentation, it will be visually, it's a good thing to manage, or a program is able to do that visual. Because as everybody say, or everybody thinks that we, as human beings, we are more like video processors. Our mind are thinks like video processors more than a word processor, you know. So it's for me, it's ideal one to visualize those reports, to see the anomalies or to see the internal control defects that we see or we witnessed.
Okay, yeah. So we have another example here. I just run through these, like just some examples to get thinking about kind of things we can do to really, like you say, visualize it. Here we're looking at journal entries that debit credit a customer. And this, you mentioned like journal entry testing is also something you can do, you know, I think it's like test the weekend, test, you know, testing if you have journal entries out of hours. And we can also do testing on like, you know, do you have strange journal entry accounting schemes? That could also be something that the tool can refresh it automatically, right? Once it's actually there. And so that could save a lot of time. This one here is it's a very similar test. It's also debit credit customers. Because so we can have like credit debit refresh where we actually make the transaction for the same customer, or then we might have, you know, between different customers. So that can also be an issue. So if we want to find out if we've got journal entries like that as well. So these kind of things can help us to, I like to say, like, choose a power sample. Like if we've got some exceptions like that, we can maybe make our sample a little bit less random. And this one is also on the journal entries. It's about unusual supplier transactions. So looking at, you know, if we are crediting a supplier account and debiting something else which is unusual, and it's not, for example, it's not an invoice, it's not payment, it's not cancellation, something unusual, we're not sure what it is, then that can also be something that we want to look at in terms of the accounting scheme. Then we have the same, but for customers. And I can see that Sylvia raised her hand, but maybe put it down up. Ladislav Silvilla, you raise your hand. I can allow you to talk if you want to. You'd need to unmute. Okay. Okay, we're there in case you want to talk. Not sure if you raise your hand intentionally or not, but if you unmute, then you could maybe talk. So this is the same for unusual customer transactions. Again, looking at the general ledger, looking at everything that hits a customer account and where we have transactions that maybe we don't understand. And then we want to ask somebody in accounting, like, you know, what is this journal entry about? Is it usual? Is it, you know, is there a reason for doing it, or are we just trying to adjust the customer balance artificially? Okay, and then quite often we also ask about high value post pre-closing, because this is also where we might want to look at trends. It's like what's happening just before the closing or during the month just before closing, and maybe we would need to use, you know, a threshold value or something. So it might be that we want, here we're looking at threshold, maybe we want to do, you know, anything above $1 million or anything that is above $100,000 and it's just before closing and it's manual, then that might also be something that the auditor wants to be able to pick out from data analytics, right, to make their sample, especially if it's materials. I think the point of this one is, if we put in here, we've got enter the high value threshold of the journal entry. If we put in there a value, very, very high value, we know is material, and then we see that there is a manual journal entry happening just before closing, then it's quick for the auditor to actually pick out that journal entry and use it for the sample, right? They can immediately see that that was an unusual one that they could maybe use in their sampling. And then this one is users with similar names. So this is when similar names to suppliers. So sometimes we have users that actually are also suppliers. And that could be a fraud case if we have somebody sharing the same name as a supplier. So, or it could just be that the user's not even a real user. Like often we're looking for like fictitious users as well. People don't really want to put their name against some transactions that they're doing. So if that's the case, that can also help us to find some very unusual users in the system. And I've got a last one down here is duplicate payments. So duplicate payments also you mentioned as well. So it's very typical test looking for duplicate payments. I think here you can see at the top, we always put the KPIs like, just to get an idea of whether it's a big problem or a little problem. And then over here, you can see a bullet chart. So this is helping us to see for this particular vendor, it's the most important one, right, for duplicate payments. And then within that vendor, which actual transactions are important as well. So we got the trend, we got kind of like the exception analysis and the trend at the same time. And then our aim is to be able to really quickly see those duplicate cases and check, you know, did that duplicated invoice actually get paid? Was it cancelled? So maybe if it was like duplicate invoice, but it was cancelled and not paid, then I don't care. But if it's a duplicate invoice and it was paid and not cancelled, then I probably do care. So that's the kind of information that with the tool, we try to let the auditors see really fast so that they can pick out their sample. Going from, and I totally agree, the sample, it's super important, right? Like what I tend to say is like, it's not like we're replacing sampling because we still have to check the result. And I know you said one thing is, and that's quite a challenge for me because you said like it helps us to go quicker. Right? It helps us to go quicker, and often when we're doing like all this stuff, auditors, and they sort of feel like making their life harder because they have to do more work. They have more checking. They've got all these results to check, and it's actually making their life harder. But hopefully we help them to at least choose the power sample, like at least choose the sample quickly. And then they still have to actually, though, they still have to go and interview and investigate the sample, right? So I don't know, what do you think if that makes it quicker for them or not? So if I hand back over to you, what do you,
Exactly. I will get into that subject in this advantages of data analytics part. One of the, if you go to next slide, there are mainly 5 advantages that I think of data analytics. One of them is that we talked about testing of full population. I mean, you can test all the transactions. You don't do sampling. There's a change. I mean, there's a difference between them. Let me tell you, audit sampling is a control procedure that we have been using for many years. We control the samples, we choose with different approaches, different approaches of choosing those sampling. During these controls, we test compliance with company rules. The more samples that we select, the more precise our result will be. At least this was the idea before. We still use sampling method in our audits, but however, everything has a limit. So it takes a lot of time to increase the number of samples and check them. So it is often criticized by the other departments. Only a small fraction of the entire population is chosen, and you are having a judgmental decision, you know. So therefore, sampling risk arises in those type of things. In general, the smaller the sample size, the greater the sampling risk. The ratio between the sample size and the population size can be a proxy for sampling risk. So as the audit sampling only provides a small snapshot of the entire population, it starts to lose some of its meaning in the big data. So one feasible solution is the usage of audit data analytics to enable the analysis of the entire population rather than a sample of transactions. So another one is it is efficient and repeatable, one of the advantages of the data analytics, because with data analytics, we can define internal audit objectives. We can design the analytics and confirm the logic. We can easily validate our results with the business owners. We can follow up and determine root causes of identified exceptions. So these are the efficiency part of the subject. If we define the high-risk areas, such as purchasing, sales, or payments, we can design an algorithm to monitor all these activities and repeat them in a time period we choose. So this is the repeatable part of the advantage. The other one is undisputed results. If you eliminate the false positives, of course, there will be false positives. There will be an undisputed data in your hands. For example, if yeah, it's easy to give example in this subject. If you have appointed 2 people in your purchasing department to approve the purchasing orders, but the analysis, if it shows you another name, then this is undisputedly clear that there is something wrong going there. So you should check the reasons behind this approval and question it. So another advantage of data analytics, as the slide says, enhanced risk assessment for audit area selection. This is easy. I mean, assessing risks is extremely important to ensure adequate focus of the internal audit on critical areas. If you, for example, if you do the same audits all the time without uncritical areas, there will be no adding value in that. So companies must extend their understanding of risk landscape to the data that is readily available. So it is also important that it should be associated with the strategic risks, both operational and functional levels. I cannot exclude the functional level. So as a result, analytical models can be built to detect potential risks, fully assess their financial and other associated impact. One of the benefits of data analytics is to create an analytical framework that can begin to balance the financial and strategic impacts and manage those risks. So these are one of the benefits. The other advantages of the data analytics, we are coming to the sampling again, targeted samples for testing, but it is this time it is different. I mean, actually, honestly, this is the most precious one for me. As I told you, we spend a lot of time for sampling and trying to get conclusions out of it. So I believe that sampling will always be part of our auditing, but the way in which we have done it before will change dramatically with the data analytics. Because you see, early in the 90s or beginning of 20s, sampling was considered a way to make a case a judgment, you know. So whatever we found in the sampling, and we can tell for the rest of the data. I think that's going to be completely opposite with data analytics, because you are going to see the analysis of 100% of the population electronically analyzed, and then the sampling will be result of that electronic analysis. They exclude all the good data and they will present all the bad data for you. So the result will be targeted specific transactions for which some reason didn't meet the business rules or didn't meet the normal flow of data or didn't meet the expectations of the company. So this is important considering the subject of sampling. So you see how the work become easier with the data analytics. Let me give you an example. I mean, I like examples a lot to express myself a little bit more. So let's say we are reviewing the sales department for discounts, for example. In the past, we used to calculate the discounts that we chose the invoices from a bunch of invoice folders. So now we are lucky. That time, if we are lucky, we came across these invoices randomly selected among those 1,000 sales during the year. If you can find, for example, a wrong calculation or wrongly calculated discount or something like that, then you are lucky. But now it is easier because the artificial intelligence or the machine is calculating all of those, and the right ones, they don't show it to you. Only the wrong ones, it's shown to you. So it's easier to focus on the targeted area, you know?
Yeah, exactly, definitely. And we just have 5 minutes, and we have some questions as well. And I know, Sally, you also wanted to get to
no problem.
the phases and the continuous monitoring. I don't know if we can do that in 5 minutes.
Maybe in another webinar, huh?
Okay. Maybe in another one. Do you want to go on to those topics, or do you want to check out the questions that we have here?
Sure.
Maybe let's just have a quick look at the questions, and then we have one person saying, how do you tackle compatibility issues? Not all corporations best a central ERP system, especially in acquisition-driven industries. Usually the biggest hurdle gain useful data for analysis purpose. Yeah, I think maybe that one is a bit like, you know, I don't know, what do you think? I suppose in your group, you might have also the same issue.
Yeah, it's a technical question, actually, but
yeah. I mean, I know
if you have an integrated ERP, like Oracle, like SAP, like those type of ERP systems, it's easier, of course, to implement data analytic tool. But if you have separate programs in different areas, for example, if you are using a different software in your logistic department, if you are using different software in your accounting department, and in finance department, different software, then for the data analytics software, it's more difficult to gather data from different sources. But as I witnessed, there are some softwares are doing that. It will be a little bit longer to implement, but still it can be done. And the testings are good enough for expectations, you know?
Yeah. And sometimes what we do, you know, especially when you're in like big four audit firm and stuff, sometimes what they do is they will put all the data into kind of mapping. That's what we used to do for journal entry testing, for example, because you got a customer might be working with SAP, another one for Oracle, another one something else. And so we used to have a mapping phase, and we put everything into the same format, a bit like the OCDE journal entries file for tax, and they request it in an XML format. So no matter whatever system you have, they can put that XML of all your journal entries through their tax analysis, and they don't have to spend any time doing anything. Yeah, so I would say that could be a solution. All right, we just have 2 minutes. I don't know, do you want to do the questions? And then we have a lot of questions though. William is saying, how do you decide how much data visualization to include in the report to be effective? For me, I would say that really depends on the risk, right? Because I tend to do a whole load of dashboards and then I'll go through them really quick. If something shows up with a high value in a high risk area, then I'll focus on it, and the other ones I'll just zap. Like only 1% of exceptions, then you can't spend your time. I think that kind of depends. Best if it's all automated and then you just sort of go through them quickly and choose the ones, right? And another person saying, in a scenario where CAE is administrative reporting to finance director, is it possible for internal audit to provide objective assessment on the status of finance internal control? I think this is a touchy one. To the external stakeholders, I would say not really. What do you think?
I mean, I always say in my post, independence is important for internal audit department. Actually, I can give you another example from my situation. I mean, I personally report to the audit committee functionally, but administratively, I report to CFO, but only for taking vacations or approving the expenses and those type of stuff. So it is easier that way, and I can remain independent in my work. So it's most likely one of the major problems of internal audit departments.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so we're kind of running out of time, but maybe Sally, do you want to share a last few words, maybe, and like how can people contact you if they want to know more about these other topics, like the phases and
I mean,
continuous auditing, things like that?
What I can say, yeah, I mean, it's a huge word. I mean, the whole concept of data analytics is a new subject for many of the internal audit departments. So try to investigate it, try to make a research about it, try to use the free versions of that. So try to add value to your work and try to make it faster. There are many free tools to be usable in front of you. If you can make a Google search, you can see all of those. I recommend to my colleagues to do that. And for the further, they have to talk to their how do you say, owners of the company or the partners of the company in order to get a budget to implement those type of things. But first, they have to show the value in it, you know?
Yeah, that's always a challenge. It's the chicken before the egg.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay, all right.
Well, thank you very much, Claire.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you so much. I have a meeting starting just after this one. So like a lot of you, I think, starting their day there over in the US. And
thank you for everybody for joining us and listening to us. It's very valuable. Thank you very much for all.
Thank you very much. And don't hesitate to get in touch with Sally in LinkedIn. And don't hesitate to join our LinkedIn group. If you, where is it? We have the LinkedIn Data Leads and Internal Audit that you can see. If you are, no, you can't see it there. Let me go back to front. This group, if you're not in our group already, join our group in LinkedIn, and we have Tuesday webcasts every Tuesday, and hope to see you there. Okay, great. Thank you, everybody, and speak to you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
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 Bye-bye.